Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from Toronto, Canada, that is. I know people are dialing in from all over the globe today. My name is Dr. Fahmida Suleiman, and I'm the curator of the Islamic World Collections here at the Royal Ontario Museum. And I'm also the lead curator for the ROM's current exhibition, Being and Belonging, Contemporary Women Artists from the Islamic World and Beyond. I'm delighted you could join us for today's ROM Connects digital program, which celebrates one of our fantastic artists in the exhibition. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the ROM sits on the ancestral lands of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Anishinaabeg Nation, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation since time immemorial to today. Being and Belonging has been made possible by lead patrons Peggy Sinclair and Murray Brooksbank, and supporting sponsor the Hal Jackman Foundation, with additional support from Kaylin Hayworth, Jane and Peter Maroney, and the Nixon Charitable Foundation. I would also like to acknowledge the support of the Royal Exhibition Circle at the ROM. I would like to thank our partner and co-sponsor of today's program, the Ilahi Omidyar Mir Jalali Institute of Iranian Studies at the University of Toronto, and in particular, its inaugural director, Professor Mohammad Tavakkoli Targhi and Shabnam Rahimi Golkhandan, who have been invaluable partners in the co-creation of the programming for Being and Belonging. Their support has helped us raise the voices of incredible female artists represented in the exhibition. So to introduce today's speaker and for the discussion to follow, please welcome Professor Mohammad Tavakkoli Targhi.
Thank you, Dr. Fahmida Suleiman, and thanks to our audience for taking the time to hear from one of the most inspiring and brilliant voices in the exhibition, that is the Being and Belonging. For today's program, which will consist of 30 minutes illustrated talk, followed by discussion, I am delighted to welcome Dr. Shiva Ahmadi, whose work covers a broad diversity of media, including watercolor, painting, sculpture, video and video animation. Having come of age in the tumultuous years of the 1979 Iranian Revolution, Shiva moved to the United States in 1998 and has been based in California, that is sunny and shiny California, since 2015. Creatively engaging with the artistic traditions in Iran, Middle East, and South Asia, she critically examines global political tensions and social concerns to create striking, provocative, and powerful creations. A more detailed bio of Shiva will be available in chat, and my gratitude to Erin Kerr for providing not only the chat, but also the bio, but also the website of Shiva Ahmadi for our audience. I encourage you all to submit your questions and thoughts via the Q&A feature during the program, and we will do our best to address them during the Q&A section of the program. Without further ado, I welcome our brilliant guest, Shiva Ahmadi. Please.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Dr. Tavakkoli, for introducing me, and Dr. Suleiman for including me into the wonderful exhibition, Being and Belonging, at the ROM Museum. It's truly an honor to be here and to speak with you. So, as Dr. Tavakkoli mentioned, I am a multimedia artist, which means that I work with a variety of mediums. I paint, make sculpture, and I also make animation. They're all, related to each other, but the variety of medium helps me to convey the message in my work, in different ways. So when I was a kid, I loved looking at miniature paintings that were hung on the wall around me. It is basically, and if you are Iranian, you know exactly what I mean. We all have it in our houses. They're fun, they're small, they're colorful and kind of decorative. But they're also very, very narrative. For those who don't know miniature painting, it is a form of traditional Iranian art. And it was originally used to illustrate classic text, folk tales, and epic poems. Then it evolved into a unique art form unto itself with its own old masters and different stylistic schools. These paintings basically made no attempt at realism. There is no perspective, no sense of scale. And the stories are basically told on a flat plane without any concerns for, there is no light source, there is no anatomy. And the most amazing aspect of these paintings to me, though, is the organization of the visual space. Basically, you can see the story is told within a limited space. You can see a full illusion of a particular scene or landscape. For example, a picture of a palace building, including parts of, the inner yard and garden and the palace interior, all at the same time in the same piece. The stories is usually inspired also by poetry. And as you can see, there are a lot of struggles between, usually between the good and evil, and it can be sometimes quite graphic. The most inspiring aspect of these paintings for me was the narrative and, the storytelling in these paintings. As a kid growing up during Iran-Iraq War and Islamic Revolution, city bombing and experiencing a lot of anxiety and instability, looking at this painting was a kind of escape for me. I would stare at this work and let my imaginations go wild. And, there are a lot of animals, there's ghouls, there are so many, fun things that if you're a kid, you can just sit in front of it and make all this stuff for yourself. So, and at that time, no computer, no iPad, or, basically not much going on. These were really a good source for me to get busy. So anyway, a couple of years after I moved to United States to go to grad school in 1998, things dramatically changed with 9/11 and invasion of Iraq. Especially for me as an Iranian immigrant living in Detroit, which has a big population of these Muslim communities, you could really feel these cultural changes. And it was like, you could see there was like life before 9/11, an invasion of Iraq, and then there was a life after that. And almost every one of us felt it. So I was in grad school when I started my first body of political work. Inspired by the structure of painting of the miniature, my earlier works were kind of contained of this symbolic imagery of bullets, boots, army boots, and oil barrels, floral gardens, and things like that. But as I worked, I gradually got rid of the rigid structure of the miniature painting, and my work became looser and more gestural. The narrative aspect and the storytelling become more dominant, though, as you can see. There are a lot of animals, different characters, you know, good and bad. They're all entangled together in these paintings, making the scene. One thing I wanted to do was to say these are stories on different layers. I wanted to kind of show the violence, the ugly truth, what was happening, the political things that was happening at the time under a beautiful decorative surface of, inspired by miniature painting. I want you to sit in front of them and connect with them. And these are not linear stories, there is no, you can see it, one story in them. What happens, there are so many things going on. And what I really enjoy to do is to ask the viewer, to get the viewer engaged, to sit in front of them and find images in there and make up their own, stories through their, their own life experiences. Now, gradually the works also got more theatrical with images like, leaders sitting on a golden throne and minions and followers serving them appeared in my work. I kind of found myself choreographing, these scenes with the leaders, with the nuclear power plant in the background, and a lot of animals and characters, walking and juggling. This is a detail from the last painting. A lot of animals and characters walking or juggling carelessly with explosives, which is kind of a commentary on our political situation in a way. A lot of careless people playing with explosives, without any care for the consequences and what happens to innocent people. Now, I also work with paint on objects as well. And in 2011, I had a show at the Chelsea Museum of Art in New York City. And I decided that I want to do something or do a painting on an oil barrel. And, an oil barrel by itself, it's a very loaded image. And, we are Persian. Of course, we kind of connect everything back to oil barrel, to oil politics. So I just got one barrel and I started painting on them. I, with the same idea, tons of floral patterns, decorating them, opening them, adding, crystals to them, make them beautiful and shiny, and all this stuff to just, cover the imagery underneath. And it was a very successful body of work. I started this body of work to just do one piece for the show. But then what happened was that, I started getting a lot of commissions. And in fact, the Sacramento Museum, the Crocker Museum in Sacramento just acquired oil barrel number 30 few months ago. So it's been a very successful piece, and I really enjoy making them. Anyway, getting back to paintings, I want to talk a little bit about the medium and the way I work. I work with watercolor on paper, large sizes. Unlike, the miniature painting that are very, very small, these paintings that I make are huge. They are, 5 feet by 7 feet long. And I work with water because I love the way that water basically runs and washes over everything. It's out of control. It is a medium that you have to be there to control the texture and to control the wash. You have to physically, like, especially when it is a large size, you have to be there to get, everything under control. And the way I work is that I put down a lot of wash on the paper, then I put some rice grain, I put some hair, even some salt, some, variety of things that I come across. And all I want to do is to create a very textural background for my imagery to be, kind of to create this very chaotic images or chaotic background for my paintings, for my characters, for my animals, and, the story. So it takes a long time to make these works, to build up these layers and to put the, images and characters on them, and then to make the composition and add the details and so on and so forth. But as I mentioned, I really like water medium because it also conveys the instability and anxiety. It's, as I mentioned, it's out of control and goes everywhere. It's always interesting to me how water is vital to our lives, but it can also be such destroyer. It's also an honest medium. When you start painting with watercolor, you cannot erase it. You cannot paint on top of it. You cannot hide the mistakes. You cannot do, basically, that's it. You make the decision, you put the paint down, and you move on with it. And that honesty sometimes is harsh, and I like that. I think that is a good medium for me. Anyway, the last few years, the main characters in my work have become women. I feel like, women are the doers, they are the caregivers, they are the creators, but they are also the destroyers. And I use the female figure as a central focal point in my paintings. The figures, are burned, they are scarred, but they are also standing strong, protecting the scenes. For these paintings, I used this is actually a new series of work that I'm working on right now. And I had a show with them in London in February. And for these paintings, I covered the watercolor. This is a still watercolor painting. And I used a lot of silk screen images of, or silk screen prints that I made of, ruins and destructions for underneath the painting. And then I did the images on top of it. I guess when I'm in the studio, I'm constantly sugarcoating the truth and making things that are ugly to look vibrant and beautiful and, nice. I want you to get close to it. That is my way of getting the audience close to my work, to look at the paintings and then see the images underneath. And of course, the recent women uprising in Iran or the women life freedom movement was extremely inspiring. I will have these are the work that I am working on in the studio right now, and I will have a solo exhibition open in Manatee Shore Museum in Davis, California in January 2024. So if you're in California, please stop by. So this was actually the end of the painting that I wanted to show you. But as I mentioned, I also make animations, and I want to show 2 animations as well. So I'm going to go through them. I went through my painting really fast to get to the animations, and the animations are actually really not separated from my paintings. They are really a natural progression of my work. I work with a lot of narrative ideas, figures, animals, characters, backgrounds, foregrounds. I choreograph these things all the time on this 2-dimensional surface. So making animation was really just like a, it was as I mentioned, it was a natural progression for me. It was just something that I needed to do. Hold on. Sorry. Erin? Okay, I'm going to share the screen again. Okay, sorry, I'm not done yet. Yeah, so for the first animation that I'm going to show you, it's called Ascend, and it is a part of the Being and Belonging show at the moment in the ROM. I made basically the Ascend animation based on the 2017 Syrian refugee crisis and the death of Aylan Kurdi, the toddler whose body was found on the shore of the Mediterranean Sea. Aylan and his family were escaping the civil war in Syria and got onto an overcrowded boat that was overturned, and they all died. It was a cruel image, and as an immigrant, I really wanted to respond to it and do something about it. So, and I'm going to show you the image. It might not be very, it is a little bit hard to see, but that was the image I wanted to do something about. So at the beginning of the Ascend animation, everything is good and happy. Monkeys are playing with the bombs and, maybe playing with bubbles, which is a sign of, it's festive and nice. And then something happened in the middle of the animation and the bubbles turns into bombs, and the peaceful, happy scene turns to a hellish space. And yeah, it's all based on this image again. And Erin, do you want to show that? Okay. So that was animation Ascent, and the second animation I wanted to show you, it's called Marooned. And it is basically a stop motion animation, to be honest. In 2020, I was contacted by the curator at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts who wanted me to do a commission for an upcoming exhibition, Rising Sun, which is like, the artist in an uncertain America. So it's the name of the show, Rising Sun, Artist in an Uncertain America. This exhibition held significant importance because it basically aimed to challenge traditional assumptions about the museum's programs, exhibition, and collections, and it also wanted to broaden and diversify the audience. So for this show, I made the Marooned animation, which was something that I wanted to do, and I wanted to make a kind of like respond to the Trump anti-immigrant rhetoric and policies that was happening at the time. So in this work, there are, it is, as I mentioned, it is a stop motion. It's technically different for me because at the first animation Ascend, I did a lot of painting. These are all my paintings that are, the background and everything that was being moved. But I use also a lot of softwares. While in the second animation, it was during pandemic. I basically didn't have, like, I was at home all the time. So I made everything by hand. For this work, I made 5,172 paintings. And as you can see, these are just not even a second of the animation. And here is the progression of that. Like, this is like a movement, very, very old ways of making work, of making, animation work without, before the softwares. Now, in Marooned, there is a group of people that are working extremely hard to make or build a pathway toward a marooned oil tanker in the ocean. And as the figures work hard and they get closer to finish the pathway and to get to the tanker, suddenly a group of ghouls appear and use the pathway that these people made to get onto the tanker and then, take it away. So let's watch the animation, and then I will be happy to answer any question that you have. Thank you so much. I will be happy to answer any question that you have.
Thank you, Shiva, for sharing your work and offering some insight into your really brilliant artwork. I was really impressed with various aspects of the work and how you work, and I'd like to later on to raise some questions concerning those. But I'd like to remind all of our audience that please forward your questions for Shiva via the Q&A feature on your screen. And just to start the conversation, I have a few questions of my own that I will raise. Shiva, I was really impressed with the way you described your work from your childhood and engagement with miniature painting, narrative miniature painting, and your own mature work that you classified as sugar coating the truth, or also talking about how the beautiful, decorative, shining space seduces the viewer to look deeper. And I'm interested in this sort of what you may call telescopic view from afar that is elegant, beautiful, fabulous, and then microscopic view when you come and look at the scene is highly dynamic. There are a lot of details, and there you hide all the painful accounts, stories, violence. And could you describe how you developed this approach of sort of the integrating beauty and ugliness, love and hate? Have you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question and for putting it so beautifully. Telescopic and microscopic. Okay. Yeah, I will be using that. I guess for me, I like to engage with an artwork through, like, spend some time with it. I want to see something that is beautiful, that is like a showstopper, that gets me stand in front of it and like, wow, how gorgeous it is, and then look at it. It's kind of like a history of our country also, of Iran, in a way that there are so many beautiful things in miniature and architecture, in everything that you look, it's just so gorgeous. And but then the history behind it, unfortunately, the politics behind it has never been that beautiful. And I think this is something that I mostly respond to, that I want you to stop to look. I want that attention. I don't want to give it to you right away. I don't want to give it to the viewer right away. I want them to stop, to look, to ask questions, to examine, to make stories, to find things on their own. When I showed the marooned animation in PAFA, in Pennsylvania museum, I got a lot of questions that are these about the climate change, and is it about the climate resource being used or stuff like that. In other places, I get different questions, and I really love that. I like that how these layers of stories make it in a way that people connect to the work through their own experiences, through their own histories and cultures. So I think it's one of the reasons for me to build up these layers, is to give audience the space to kind of connect with the work.
Very good. Much of your work, both the paintings and animations, as you clearly indicated, are in narrative forms that masterfully really recount the issues of our time, war, exploitation, and immigration, and often, as I indicated, in a fabulous form that resembles the miniature painting and manuscript designs of medieval Iran and India. And this is, again, what you described, explained in your own presentation. I'm wondering, how do you classify your own artwork? I have been thinking of your work as sort of postmodern miniaturist, that it resembles the medieval, but it has content that is not just limited to Iran, is global 20th, 21st century content. And at a certain level, you could also discuss your work, categorize your work as sort of a magical realism or a Persianate magical realism. Again, what I find interesting is that you have a global content in a form that resembles medieval Persian miniature, but when microscopically dig it and explore it, is all issues of our own time, 21st century, whether Iranian, Middle Eastern, or American.
Yeah. You know, it's a, how do unfortunately, I cannot really put it into, like, well, when you're especially an artist, you can't say, you know, it belongs, you know, the postmodernism, miniature painting, as you mentioned. I wish I could do that. I don't know, it's contemporary art. And I think I'm using miniature as the structure for me. I'm using miniature as something that will give me the guidance.
Right.
But I don't make miniature. I was not even trained as a miniature painter. These are large paintings. I think if you actually talk it to, you know, a trained miniature painter, they never think of my work as a miniature painting. I use those cultural things that are close to me, close to home, something that I experienced. But I'm also an Iranian immigrant, you know, woman living in the United States. And things that I have experienced, things that I watch in news every single day, really make a lot of, it is basically the content of my work. It's like I respond to those images that I see every day, and I use that to bring them together. So.
Thank you. I was really intrigued with the animation Ascend and the transformation of bubbles to bombs. And there you are really a masterful storyteller and illustrated storyteller, highly complex, brings in variety of things together in a space of a short period of 10 minutes, recount a global issue. What I'm interested is that how do the working process of how you imagine this to work? It seems to me that there is a transition, that transition of turning bubbles into bombs, human beings that are playing and having a really great time, all of a sudden are agitated into become something different. And I want to see how did you imagine this? Did you have a story already fully crafted, or in the process of producing the work, this story emerged and matured and became what you showed us?
I have a storyboard. I storyboard like hell. Yeah, I start with the idea. I knew that I wanted to start with a bubble that turns, it's something festive that turns into something hellish. And I wanted to start with the circular form of a bubble that turns into a bomb. So for me, that was the beginning of the story. That was the whole point. And then, you know, writing the story and then writing the references, like the tree, like the bubbles, like the bomb, like the boat, like the little boy, like the, you know, the Gabriel or the angels with the, you know, baby angels and the, you know, the baby in the hands, and all those, you know, come later on, and then you put them in together. But seriously, when you are making animation, things are very different because you only have about a certain amount of time, and you can only just show these storyboards to like you can't, you have to make a lot of editing decision, and that is the most difficult part of, you know, filmmaking in general.
Right.
It's like how much to say and how much not to say and how much, you know, stuff like that. So I do storyboard a lot, and then things changes as I start making them, and I make a lot of changes. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Dr. Fahmida Suleiman has been looking at thoughtful questions supplied by our audience, and she will be sharing some of those questions with us. Please, Fahmida.
Thank you so much to Shiva and Professor Tavakoli. The questions have come fast and furious now. We're going to try and get through as many as we can. They're all so good. I don't have time to go through the comments where everybody is giving you so much love. Shiva, like, incredible work, simply incredible. I've got gut-wrenching. I have fantastic. People are happy about the talk. So putting those to the side. So Sarah asks, thank you for presenting such amazing works. I was wondering if you have found any other elements other than water to reveal the instability in your artworks. Also, have you ever thought of the surfaces that you are painting, like some surfaces that are not necessarily flat? So I know you talked about the oil barrel. That's one surface that is not so flat. But so Sarah is asking these questions about other elements besides water that reveal an instability in your art.
Yes, the monkeys, you know, monkeys or the the characters or the ghouls that are playing with, you know, explosives carelessly are the one source of instability. The, you know, the wash or the chaotic background that I try to create with the texture, a lot of texture, you know, it's another source for me. I also think that, you know, animation, which is moving painting, is just basically a two-dimensional artwork that you add the element of time to it. It's just like the surface of the oil barrel that, you know, helps, you know, basically say the story in a different way. So yeah, I think time is also another surface for me.
Interesting. And now you're playing with silk screen in your most latest,
yes.
isn't it? Okay, so great answer. Moving on quickly. Next question from Leila. Her question pertains to humans, and narratives surrounding them are among your main concerns. But could you explain the role of the monkeys or the animals in general in your animation, and elaborate on their relevance to the issues of humankind and war in the world? Even in the tours I give in Being and Belonging, when we come to Ascend, people say, why did she choose monkeys? Is she making a comment on humans, humankind?
You know, monkey sees, monkey does, right? Brainless, but also fun and lovely, but also dangerous, right? And when I started the paintings that you know, I call them throne series, like a throne, and the golden throne series, and I had this, you know, leaders sitting on the golden throne, and the minions or the followers of the leader, amongst them were the monkeys who will do the things, who will do the deed, right? Without even thinking what they are doing. And I think that is basically very much also respond to what our life is, to the contemporary issues, to this time, that there is a lot of followers without thinking, without really examining what they are doing. They are just doing it. And, the consequences is, of course, is that we are always paying. So animals, especially monkeys, that was the reason behind it. But
So
also the George Orwell, or the Animal Farm, was also another very important influence in my life. I loved that story, and I always wanted to use the animals as, a source to say stories as the characters.
oh, thank you. So a question that kind of leads to that is, most of the faces in your work, they don't have details, yet the feelings and emotions were very visible and sensible. Can you talk about that a bit? Why did you choose not to have details of faces?
I don't, the reason is that it's a formal decision behind the work. I believe when you have faces, people are stuck with the face and they don't see the rest of the, work. I have experienced it a lot, that they get stuck with, with the eyes and with the features, and they really don't pay attention to the rest of it. And I wanted it to be about the body and emotion and experience the physical thing. So I don't bring the face because of that. I literally think that these are the doers and these are the actions, and make the decision or make the story for yourself without paying attention. Is that a man? Is that a woman? Is this black? Is this white? Is this, it's like all those questions, I want to eliminate them from the content of the work.
They also make your work very universal, because
Yes.
you don't limit them in terms of gender, in terms of race, skin color. There's a question about marooned from Katie. She says, it seems to me that this animation has a very anti-colonialist message, which highlights also the experiences of many people in the region, such as the British involvement in Iran and its oil resources. Was this your intention?
Yes. Exploitation. And it was intentional to use the land, to take the actual thing out of the land, build something to get to something that you want, and to do the physical labor, and then literally it's being taken, away from you by another force. So, and again, I think it is coming back to that source, but also immigration. We are all immigrants to other countries because of this kind of, because of it. So yeah, it is
That is a
very.
good segue actually for the next question, which is, so your work suggests a breadth of narratives and stories. I feel that as a North American, I am missing so much of the cultural and political references. As an artist and a storyteller, are you bridging the Western and the Eastern gap, and how?
Well, I guess this is actually a question that I don't think I have a very clear answer for this question, and I'm being asked this a lot, and I think about it a lot, that how am I bridging the gap between I grew up in Iran. I have that background. And then I live in the West, and I have these experiences. I speak a language that I have a terrifying accent. But it's just that duality is that like you speak the language, but you have an accent. You live in this country, but it's not your home. You comment on the issues that, but your audience are, many of them are Westerners, are always, this is always, you know, something that I deal with, that, you know, and I think this is something that immigrants deal with. This is not, this is, I have been living in this country for 4 years. And when I go back home, it's not, Iran is not, I don't feel like it's my home. And I don't feel like this is my home either. I don't feel like, you know, this duality, it's in everything. And the best I can do is basically bring them together from my cultural background and from what I see, and try to find formal elements, formal ways to say them, like animation, like paintings and things like that. So I don't even know if I answered the question.
You did, Shiva. We want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being part of the exhibition, but also being part of today's talk, for being so honest and so engaging. And we love you very much. And we also love Professor Mohammad Tabakoli Targi for guiding this conversation in his wonderful way. We also thank our partner, the Elahi Omidyar Mir Jalali Institute of Iranian Studies, for their ongoing support of the exhibition and its associated programming. Being and Belonging is on at the ROM until January 7th, 2024. If you've already seen it, please come and see it again, especially in the last week of the program on the 5th, 6th, and 7th of January. We've got artist Canan coming from Turkey. She's the lady who did the amazing tarot cards, and she will be doing free tarot card readings on the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in the last weekend of the show. So please come. I hope you will make time to do so over December. Come and see us. Entry to the exhibition is now included with your general admission at the ROM. Everybody, thank you, audience, for joining us, for participating. We had so much fun. And everybody have a great afternoon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.